Despite splitting the first two games of the finals, the Indiana Pacers had a really hard time bottling up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, where he would score 30 plus in both games, and the Thunder's offense for the most part was really comfortable. But Game 3 was a totally different story, where OKC as a team committed 17 turnovers, and the Pacers' ball pressure completely took SGA out of rhythm. Now, in the first two games, I thought Indiana gave Shai way too much space off the dribble. First, in pick and roll, they had their big sitting back in a deep drop, which is pretty much a death sentence for a guy like Shai that can separate and pop jumpers going both right and left. But then even if the man defending the screener stepped up above the arc, Shai could still attack into that space and work to his spots.
SGA pull-up, got it.
Look how OKC is going to set the screen at the logo, and with Halliburton sitting back below the level, Shai can easily charge up and push him back to then elevate in the paint. Now on this play, Siakam is late in stepping up and meeting him with the ball, and Shai can just attack into his momentum to then get him on his hip and bump his way to the basket. And Shai's ability to attack into space also applies to the man guarding the ball. If he has too much breathing room off the dribble, he can use that space to charge up and explode downhill, or eat up that space and work to his spots in the mid-range. Look how sad back Matherd is here, and Shai can easily get past him with this simple push cross. And once he gets you on his back like this, it's pretty much over. So whether he's playing downhill or separating for perimeter jumpers, SGA is a master at leveraging space to create his offense. And this leads us to the Pacers' first adjustment, which was to simply crowd Shai space. At the start of Game 3, Indiana was committed to making SGA as uncomfortable as possible off the dribble by picking him up full court and having the big step up and meet him at the level of the screen. We'll see Nesmith here hounding the ball full court. But as Chet looks to set the screen, notice how Turner is already stepping up and ready to meet the ball, which turns him away and forces him back towards the aggressive help. And again, because Shai has literally no space to work with, this forces him into a rush and off-balance finish. Look how Nembhard here is in his face the entire way up the court. And because Shai is so occupied with that ball pressure, he doesn't even see Turner rotating up to double the ball.
He said it was Indy's best quarter of the series thus far.
Now, while dealing with these aggressive coverages, I do think Shai for the most part was making the right play. He was able to pretty consistently find the roller, which then led to some decent shots. But I think Indiana was willing to live with guys like Lou Dort and Alex Caruso getting open shots, as opposed to letting the MVP get downhill and torch you with his mid-range and rim scoring. Now, the next adjustment that Indiana made was just throwing extra bodies at Shai. In the first two games, whether he was playing out on the perimeter or in the mid-post, the Pacers for the most part were giving him all the time and space in the world to play one-on-one, which safe to say is not a recipe for success when guarding SGA. But last night, Shai pretty much never got the opportunity to isolate. Whenever OKC tried to clear out one side of the floor to let him work, the Pacers were pretty consistently sending an extra body to get the ball out of his hands. Throughout Game 3, I also thought the Pacers were much more aggressive in gap. Whether Shai was playing in isolation or pick and roll, there was always heavy help on the strong and weak side, which again either got the ball out of his hands or forced him into out of rhythm jumpers. We'll see him here turn the corner off the screen to his left, but look how he's then met by these three Pacer defenders in the paint. And once he sprays the ball out, Indiana has no problem scrambling and recovering. Shai's initially able to split this hard hedge, but again, look how the Pacers defense collapses down towards the paint. And this aggressive help defense also exposes the minor limitations that Shai has as a passer. Now again, when Shai draws a crowd, he pretty consistently makes the right play. But at the same time, I don't think he maps the floor quite as well as other elite playmakers. Look how TJ McConnell here is able to fool him by stunting down towards the roller to then snag the skip pass. On this play, the Pacers are going to again meet him with the hard hedge. But while working around, he doesn't read Halliburton rotating up from the weak side. So while Indiana's ball pressure, aggressive ball screen coverages, and heavy gap defense was able to slow Shai down in spots, he still finished with a healthy 24 points, and he was able to capitalize on pretty much every minor breakdown. Nesmith here is late to step up on this ball screen, and like we've gone over, once Shai gets that space to pick up a head of steam, it's pretty much a wrap. The Pacers on this play were lazy with their gap defense. Notice how Turner and Nembhard just slide back as Shai has Nesmith on his hip. And from here, SGA can get into a routine bump and separate jumper. Now, even though Shai was still able to score, the thing is Indiana was making him work for every single point. He pretty much always had to beat pressure 40 feet out to then explode through more contact in the paint, or he had to stop and settle himself for jumpers. And fighting through contact like this is exhausting. And then on top of that, Shai also had to work to catch the ball in the half court. If he wanted to catch the ball below the 3, he had to fight for position. And if not, he was then being pushed out into catching right below half court, where he then has to start from scratch in dealing with that pressure and creating space. Now, this is just one half of Indiana's game plan to wear down Shai. On the other side of the ball, they were ruthlessly putting him in every single one of their offensive actions by putting him in isolation against Pascal Siakam, forcing him to step up and navigate through Tyrese Haliburton ball screens, or targeting him down low against Turner if OKC decided to switch. And even the Pacers bench players had their opportunity to go at Shai. On this baseline out of bounds play, look how Indiana is going to have Ben Shepherd from the opposite corner sprint off this elevator screen towards the ball side corner. And while Shai for the most part held his own pretty well, I do think the non-stop pressure on both ends of the court began to wear him down. And he did have quite a few defensive breakdowns throughout the game. The Thunder couldn't afford to switch with him on Siakam, and he did have a hard time containing the ball at the point of attack.
Defensively, it's a big part of why they're here.
And that fatigue also bled over to Shai's offense. It was pretty clear that he wasn't getting the same burst with the ball, where many of his downhill drives were getting stonewalled. And he also had some pretty uncharacteristic sloppy turnovers. And him being tired also led to more grifting and foul baiting, because it does take less effort to sell out to draw fouls, as opposed to playing through contact with the intent to score. So overall, I still think OKC should still be the favorite in the series, and SGA will most likely bounce back in a big way. But at the same time, I still think the Indiana Pacers deserve a ton of credit for their defense, and they're right now giving the best scorer in the NBA some legit problems. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments who the kids should break down next. The kids here.